Deep in the Maplewood forest, the Orphanage House, abandoned for over 70 years, still stands isolated and grim, like a wound bleeding silently amidst the stillness of nature. Locals call it the Orphanage House, though no one remembers the origin of the name. What they do know is that it is tied to strange stories about children who vanished without a trace. According to old documents, in 1948, this house was once the Maplewood Orphanage, run by a woman named Agnes Crowley. She was known for her harsh discipline, enforcing strict rules on the children. However, the most horrifying part of the stories surrounded the basement, where none of the children sent there ever returned. In the winter of 1952, a massive fire mysteriously ravaged the upper part of the house. Everyone believed that all had perished, but when the rescue team arrived, no bodies of Agnes Crowley or the children were found. The basement area was blocked off by cracked concrete, and since then, no one has dared to step foot in the house. Years later, locals living near the area began hearing the sound of giggling and the soft patter of small footsteps echoing from the forest as dusk fell. Groups of brave young people tried to explore, but only a few ever returned. They spoke of shadowy figures silently standing at the second-floor windows, gazing down with pale, ghostly smiles. Mary Thompson, who lives just a mile away, recounted one October night when thick fog enveloped the area. She saw a faint light flickering inside the orphanage. At first, I thought it was a hallucination, but as I got closer, I saw the figures of children holding hands, running in circles beneath the moonlight. They were whispering something I couldn't quite catch, but it sent chills down my spine. What's even more chilling, many people claim that on moonless nights, if one stands in front of the orphanage, they can hear a soft knocking sound, a slow, rhythmic knock, as if beckoning someone to enter. In 2023, a group of paranormal investigators decided to explore the house. On the first night, they set up cameras and recording devices all over, particularly in front of the sealed basement door. No one dared to break the cracked concrete, but strange sounds began to emerge. The recordings picked up the whispers of several children's voices, mingled with a vague lullaby, and a low, feminine voice repeatedly saying, "It's bedtime now." 3 days later, the investigation team vanished without a trace. Their cameras were found scattered around the forest, one of which captured the slow opening of the basement door. Suddenly, the temperature dropped even further, the very air around them growing dense and oppressive. The flashlight beams flickered, and as they moved around the chamber, they saw, in the dim glow, the faint outlines of children, pale, hollow-eyed figures standing motionless in the corners, watching them. One of the investigators, Mark, felt a cold hand brush his shoulder, and when he turned around, nothing was there. But his heart pounded in his chest, and a voice, soft but clear, whispered directly into his ear, "You're too late. We never left." A sudden, violent gust of wind howled through the chamber, extinguishing their lights and plunging them into complete darkness. The whispering grew louder, now accompanied by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, tiny, swift, running circles around them. Panic surged through the group, and they stumbled backward, trying to reach the exit. But the hallway they had entered was now completely different. The walls seemed to twist and contort, bending in unnatural angles, as if the house itself was reshaping, responding to their intrusion. From within the darkness, a voice, distinct, commanding, and all too familiar, rang out. "Leave now, or join us forever." It was the voice of Agnes Crowley. Terrified, the group rushed towards the door they had entered from, only to find it gone. The chamber around them was now a maze of shifting walls, with doors that led to nowhere. Desperate and exhausted, they searched for any way out, but it was too late. A chilling wind swept through the room, and the ghostly figures of the children began to gather, encircling them. One by one, the figures reached out, their cold hands brushing against the investigators' skin. Each touch sent a jolt of icy terror through their bodies, their hearts pounding in fear. The last thing they saw, as their vision blurred, was the pale, haunting face of Agnes Crowley emerging from the shadows, her eyes black as coal, her lips curling into a twisted smile. Days later, a search party was sent to find the missing investigators, but only their equipment was discovered scattered across the woods surrounding the house. The authorities, unable to explain the disappearance, closed the case, but locals knew better. The legend of the Maplewood Orphanage persisted, even after the house was abandoned. No one dared to go near the house, but the whispers continued to haunt the town, passed down from one generation to the next. People spoke of the curse, how anyone who stepped too close to the orphanage would be claimed by the spirits of the lost children, doomed to become part of their endless, haunting circle. And so, the house remained, forever standing, silent and abandoned, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover the secrets it hid beneath its rotting walls. But perhaps the most disturbing truth was this: those who vanished into the darkness were not gone forever. They were simply waiting for someone to join them in their eternal torment, with darkness spilling out like a thick black smoke. The last image was of a small, pale hand reaching for the edge of the door, and then the screen went black. The Maplewood Orphanage has now been completely sealed off. Local residents swear they still see flickering lights on moonless nights, and the sound of children's laughter sometimes echoes from deep within the forest. No one dares to go near again, but the curse of Maplewood lingers on, like an untold story with no end. When the basement door slowly creaked open, a musty, pungent smell filled the air. Beneath the thick layer of dust, small muddy footprints were still imprinted on the cement floor. The flashlight beam illuminated the cracked walls, covered in scribbled drawings, childish scrawls. Strange symbols and ancient sigils intertwined, as if part of a forgotten ritual. In the deepest corner of the basement lay an old, rusted iron bed frame, abandoned, beside a worn-out doll. Its glass eyes glistened as if it was watching every step of the intruder. The whispering began again, now clearer, each voice slowly echoing, "Stay, play with us." As the footsteps echoed in the dark, the group of investigators hesitated, but curiosity and fear pushed them further. They stepped into the basement, the air thick with the scent of decay and forgotten memories. Each step seemed to sink deeper into the very fabric of the house, as though the building itself was alive, watching, waiting. The walls seemed to close in on them, and every turn they took led them further down narrow, claustrophobic corridors. The faint sound of children's laughter could be heard, always just out of reach, a maddening, echoing giggle that reverberated through their skulls. One by one, they felt their sanity starting to crack. The temperature dropped sharply, their breath misting in the cold, unnatural air. The light from their flashlights flickered erratically, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced across the walls, as if something was moving just beyond their sight. At the end of the hall, they came across a door, one that appeared far older than the rest of the house. Unlike the other decrepit rooms, this one seemed strangely pristine, untouched by time. Etched into the doorframe were symbols, some they recognized, others incomprehensible, pulsating with a faint, eerie glow. As they pushed the door open, the sound of children's whispers intensified, now joined by a low hum, a chant, soft but menacing. Behind the door lay a circular chamber, its walls lined with old, brittle pages of parchment, some yellowed with age, others smeared with dark stains. At the center of the room stood an altar, crafted from stone, surrounded by small, dusty objects. Toys, dolls, and broken trinkets. The air was thick with the remnants of old rituals that should have been forgotten long ago. Years after the last investigator's disappearance, an old photograph surfaced in the town library. It was a picture of Agnes Crowley, standing outside the Maplewood Orphanage, flanked by a group of smiling children. Their faces were frozen in a grotesque semblance of joy, But there was something wrong about the way they looked. Their eyes were empty, hollow, blackened, as if they were no longer alive. On the back of the photo, written in a shaky hand, was a single sentence: "They never left, and neither will you."